He thought he was just buying her dignity for $10,000. He thought he was proving that everyone has a price. But when that struggling waitress chased him down to return a fortune she desperately needed, she didn't just break his cynical worldview. She unlocked a family secret that would bring a billionaire to his knees. He had billions. She had nothing. In a world where kindness is often mistaken for weakness and we build walls to keep people out, Samuel Coleman was the king of isolation. He walked into that diner to mock the poor, but he ended up staring into the eyes of a destiny he couldn't control. This is the story of Samuel and Donna. One is drowning in wealth but starving for connection, the other is drowning in debt but rich in integrity. What starts as a cruel social experiment spirals into a heartbreaking roller coaster of humiliation, regret, and a miracle no one saw coming. But be warned, before the redemption, there is the fall. You are about to witness a man unknowingly destroy his own sister's life, getting her fired and homeless before the shocking truth hits him like a freight train. If you believe that destiny always finds a way and that family is worth fighting for, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now to join our community of storytellers. Like this video if you're ready to see arrogance shatter into humility. Let's unravel the lie that kept them apart. Samuel Coleman wasn't just a wealthy man, he was the quintessential billionaire CEO who had completely forgotten what the word no sounded like, living in a bubble of luxury that had long since lost its shine. Walking into the Greasy Spoon, a dilapidated diner that smelled of stale coffee and broken dreams, felt less like a lunch break and more like a twisted social experiment designed to amuse his bored, cynical mind. He adjusted his tailored Italian suit, the fabric costing more than the entire building, and sneered at the cracked vinyl seats that seemed to be holding on for dear life. It was a stark contrast to his usual haunts, but today, Samuel craved the gritty reality of a world he felt superior to, looking for a distraction from his hollow success. He checked his gold watch, annoyed by the slow pace of everything around him, treating the environment like a zoo exhibit rather than a place of business. Honestly, looking around the place, you could practically taste the desperation in the air, a flavor Samuel found both repulsive and strangely fascinating in his emotionally detached state. He sat down with a heavy sigh, already judging the patrons who were just trying to get through their day, convincing himself that everyone here was beneath him. It wasn't just about money, it was about a deep-seated belief that people were fake, always wanting something, always playing an angle to get ahead in this heartbreaking rat race. He drummed his fingers on the sticky table, impatient and ready to make someone's day miserable just because he could, a dark cloud hanging over him. His eyes scanned the room, looking for flaws, looking for excuses to validate his bitterness toward humanity. Then he saw her, a struggling waitress weaving through the tables with a tired shuffle that spoke volumes about her life story without uttering a single word. Donna Wynter looked like she had the weight of the world resting squarely on her slumped shoulders, her uniform faded and her eyes reflecting a profound exhaustion. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was just trying to survive another shift, oblivious to the fact that a destiny she couldn't imagine was sitting in booth 4. To Samuel, she was just another face in the crowd, another person to be analyzed and dismissed, but there was something about her resilience that caught his eye. He watched her wipe sweat from her brow, a gesture so raw and human it almost pierced his armor. "Coffee. Black. And make it quick," Samuel barked without even looking up from his phone, his tone dripping with the kind of arrogance that usually makes people cringe. It was a humiliated attempt to assert dominance in a place where his net worth meant nothing to the grand scheme of survival, but he didn't care. He wanted to see if she would snap, if the facade of polite service would crack under the pressure of his rudeness, revealing the ugly truth he believed existed in everyone. It was a cruel game, really, testing people's limits for his own entertainment, completely unaware that this unbelievable encounter was about to shift the axis of his existence. He didn't see a person, he saw a target for his frustration. Instead of snapping back or rolling her eyes, Donna simply nodded, her expression unreadable but tinged with a sadness that felt like a family secret kept hidden for too long. She poured the coffee with a steady hand, despite the tears that seemed to be threatening to spill over at any moment from sheer fatigue. "Coming right up, sir," she said softly, her voice carrying a gentle dignity that seemed out of place in such a rough establishment. It was a small gesture, but it irritated Samuel. He wanted a reaction, a fight, something to prove his cynical worldview correct, not this quiet submission that felt unsettlingly genuine. He watched the steam rise from the cup, wondering what it would take to break her. He watched her walk away, noting the holes in her shoes and the way she rubbed her lower back, a silent testament to a life of hard labor and little reward. Samuel took a sip of the bitter coffee, plotting his next move, thinking about how he could escalate the situation to get a rise out of her. He reached for his wallet, feeling the thick stack of cash inside, and a twisted idea began to form in his mind, a plot twist waiting to happen. Little did he know, his arrogance was blinding him to the miracle of human connection that was about to unfold right in front of his jaded eyes. He thought he was the puppet master, but he was just a player in a larger game. The diner buzzed with the low hum of conversation, but Samuel felt isolated in his tower of wealth, unable to bridge the gap between his reality and theirs. He looked at Donna again, analyzing her every move, looking for the scam, the con, the inevitable disappointment he was sure would come. But all he saw was work, endless, tiring work, and for a split second, a pang of something unfamiliar struck his chest. Guilt. No, he dismissed it quickly. He was Samuel Coleman, and he didn't do guilt, he did results, and he was about to get a result one way or another. Donna Wynter felt like she was drowning in an ocean of medical debt, each bill a wave crashing over her head, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Serving the arrogant man in the expensive suit was just another trial in a life that seemed determined to test her resolve at every turn. She balanced the tray with practiced ease, though her muscles screamed in protest, her body worn down by double shifts and sleepless nights worrying about the future.
She noticed the way Samuel looked at her, with cold, calculating eyes that seemed to strip away her dignity, but she refused to let him see her pain. She had a job to do, and she would do it with grace, no matter how humiliated she felt inside. The demands kept coming. This coffee is cold. The toast is burnt. Do you call this service? Each complaint a sharp jab at her already fraying patience. Yet, Donna responded with a polite nod and a soft apology, masking the heartbreaking reality that she was one paycheck away from losing everything. She thought of the sick relative she was caring for, the reason she endured this daily grind, and found the strength to keep going. Samuel's cruelty was nothing compared to fear of homelessness, a shadow that loomed larger with every passing day. She held on to her composure like a lifeline, determined not to give him the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. It wasn't just the work, it was the isolation, the feeling that she was invisible to the world, a ghost haunting the tables of the Greasy Spoon. She wondered if anyone truly saw her, or she was just a vessel for food and drink, a temporary convenience. When she approached Samuel's table to refill his cup, she caught a glimpse of his expensive watch and felt a pang of envy, not for the object, but for the security it represented. It was unbelievable how some people had so much while others scraped by on crumbs, a disparity that stung more than any insult he could hurl at her. Still, she poured the coffee, her hand steady, her spirit bruised but unbroken. Samuel didn't know it, but Donna was fighting a battle he couldn't even comprehend, a war against a system that seemed rigged against the poor and vulnerable. Every smile she forced was a victory. Every polite "you're welcome" a shield against his negativity. She remembered her mother's words about kindness being a strength, not a weakness, and she clung to that life story as her moral compass. Even as he sneered at her, she treated him with the respect she wished the world would show her, a quiet act of rebellion against his cynicism. She was a struggling waitress, yes, but she was also a warrior in an apron. As the lunch rush peaked, Donna moved like a dancer in a chaotic ballet, dodging patrons and balancing plates, her mind racing with calculations of rent and medication costs. She glanced at Samuel again, hoping he would leave soon so she could breathe, but he remained, a dark statue in the corner. She didn't know why he was staying, why he seemed so fixated on her, but it made her uneasy. Was he planning to complain to the manager? To get her fired? The thought sent a shiver of fear down her spine, but she pushed it down, focusing on the task at hand. She couldn't afford to panic now. She approached his table one last time to drop off the check, bracing herself for another snide remark or dismissal. Instead, he just stared at her, his expression unreadable, a mixture of boredom and something else she couldn't place. "Is there anything else I can get you, sir?" she asked, her voice steady despite the trembling in her legs. She was a picture of professionalism, a stark contrast to his rude demeanor, proving that class has nothing to do with money. She waited, holding her breath, wondering what destiny had in store for this encounter. Donna walked back to the counter, her heart pounding, feeling the eyes of the other patrons on her. Or maybe it was just her anxiety playing tricks. She wiped her hands on her apron, taking a moment to close her eyes and center herself. She was tired, so incredibly tired, but she couldn't stop. Not yet. She had to keep moving, keep smiling, keep serving, because the alternative was a darkness she wasn't ready to face. She was a survivor, and survivors don't quit, even when a billionaire tries to break them. Samuel took a bite of the sandwich, grimaced, and pushed the plate away as if it were contaminated, making a show of his disgust for the entire diner to see. Garbage. He muttered loud enough for neighboring tables to hear, his voice dripping with disdain for the struggling waitress and the establishment she worked for. He looked around at the other patron construction workers, elderly couples, tired mothers, and felt a wave of superiority wash over him. To him, they were sheep content with mediocrity, eating slop and calling it food. It was a social experiment. In his mind, how much indignity would these people swallow? He pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails about mergers and acquisitions, trying to reconnect with a world where he was a king, but the signal was weak, adding to his irritation. He watched a young couple laughing over a shared milkshake and felt a pang of annoyance. Their happiness seemed fake, an unbelievable performance for a life that was clearly going nowhere. Samuel had lost the ability to see joy in simple things. His emotional detachment from reality was absolute. He had everything money could buy, yet he sat there miserable, projecting his emptiness onto everyone else. "How do you people eat this?" he asked loudly as Donna passed by, not really expecting an answer, just wanting to assert his presence. The room went quiet for a moment, eyes darting toward the rude man in the suit, but no one said a word. They were used to people like him, people who thought their wallets gave them the right to be cruel. Samuel mistook their silence for submission, fueling his ego further. He felt like a giant among ants, unaware that his stature was purely financial, while their silence was a dignity he lacked. He picked up a napkin and wiped his mouth aggressively, as if trying to scrub away the experience of being there. The heartbreaking truth was that Samuel was desperate for a connection, for something real, but he had built so many walls that he only knew how to interact through conflict. He mocked the decor, the smell, the music, anything to keep the silence at bay. He was a billionaire CEO throwing a tantrum, a man who had conquered the business world but failed at being human. Donna returned to clear his plate, her face a mask of neutral politeness, refusing to engage with his hostility. "I'm sorry it wasn't to your liking," she said, her voice devoid of sarcasm. Samuel scoffed, "Liking? It's barely edible." He wanted her to argue, to defend the food, to show some fire, but she just nodded and walked away. Her lack of engagement infuriated him. It made him feel small, ignored, irrelevant in a way he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't the protagonist here. He was just a nuisance. He looked at the empty seat across from him, a stark reminder of his solitude. He had driven away anyone who ever cared, convinced they were all after his money, leaving him with nothing but his paranoia. The tears he refused to cry had turned into a hard shell of cynicism. He watched the door, half expecting someone to walk in and challenge him, but the world just kept turning, indifferent to his internal crisis. He was alone in a crowded room, a prisoner of his own success. Samuel signaled for the check, ready to leave this depressing hole and go back to his penthouse. He had made his point, or so he thought. He had proven that he was better, that he didn't belong here. But as he waited, a strange thought crossed his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he was the one who was missing out. He shook his head, dismissing the thought as weakness. He was Samuel Coleman, and he didn't miss out on anything. He was about to leave a mark they wouldn't forget. The check arrived, a flimsy piece of paper representing a sum that wouldn't even cover the gas for Samuel's luxury car. He stared at it, a wicked grin spreading across his face as the idea fully crystallized in his mind, the ultimate social experiment. He pulled out a pen, not to sign a credit card slip, but to write a note, something to test the character of the woman who had served him with such maddening grace. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope he had just withdrawn from the bank, containing exactly $10,000 in crisp $100 bills. Why was he doing this? Was it charity? Hardly. It was a test, a way to prove that everyone has a price, that even the most virtuous struggling waitress would abandon her morals for a stack of cash. Or perhaps, deep down, it was just a way to show off, to flaunt his power and leave them gasping in his wake. He placed a stack of bills on the table, the sheer volume of it looking absurd next to the dirty coffee cup. It was a plot twist in the mundane narrative of the diner, a bomb waiting to go off. He scribbled a note on a napkin for your trouble. Don't spend it all in one place. It was patronizing, arrogant, exactly the kind of thing a billionaire CEO detached from reality would write. He imagined her reaction to greed, the shock, the immediate resignation. He wanted to watch from a distance, to see the moment the mask fell and the hunger took over. He stood up, buttoning his jacket, feeling a rush of adrenaline. This was better than any board meeting. This was playing God with someone's life. Leaving the money there felt reckless, unbelievable, and exhilarating. It was a $10,000 tip on a $10 lunch, a discrepancy that defied logic. Samuel glanced around to ensure no one was watching too closely, then slipped out of the booth, leaving the fortune sitting there like a trap. He walked toward the exit, his heart beating a little faster. He wasn't just leaving money, he was leaving a question mark, a challenge to the universe. As he pushed open the door and stepped into the cool air, he felt a sense of triumph. He had disrupted their world, shaken the snow globe just to see where the flakes would land. He didn't care about the consequences for Donna. He only cared about the story he would tell himself later, the confirmation of his cynical worldview. They're all the same, he muttered, reaching for his car keys. Give them money, and they show their true colors. He got into his sleek, silver sports car, the engine roaring to life like a beast. He didn't drive away immediately. He sat there, watching the diner's entrance through his rear-view mirror, waiting. He wanted to see her run out, maybe to celebrate, maybe to look for him with dollar signs in her eyes. He was ready to be proven right. He was ready to see the shocking truth of human greed on full display. But as the seconds ticked by, a tiny seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. What if she didn't react the way he expected? What if he was wrong? He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. No, that was impossible. Everyone wanted money. Everyone needed it, especially someone like her. He watched the door, the tension building, unaware that it just set in motion a chain of events that would unravel his entire life. Inside the diner, Donna approached the table to clear it, her mind already on the next task. When she saw the stack of bills, her breath hitched in her throat, and she nearly dropped the tray. It wasn't excitement she felt, it was pure, unadulterated panic. $10,000. It was a miracle, a life raft, the answer to every prayer she had whispered in the dark. But as she stared at the money, a cold realization washed over her. This had to be a mistake. No one leaves a $10,000 tip on purpose. Her hands trembled as she picked up the stack, looking around wildly to see if anyone had seen. The temptation was there, a seductive whisper promising to pay off the medical debt, to save her from eviction, to buy peace of mind. But then she thought of the man, the arrogant, sad man. If he had left this by accident, losing could destroy him, or worse, he could come back accusing her of theft. Her integrity, the one thing she had left in this world, roared to life. She couldn't keep it. It wasn't hers. Without thinking, driven by a frantic need to correct this unbelievable error, Donna grabbed the money and sprinted toward the door. Sir, wait!" She screamed, bursting out onto the sidewalk, her apron flapping in the wind. She scanned the parking lot and saw the silver car just starting to pull away. Panic surged through her veins. She couldn't let him leave thinking she was a thief, or worse, unaware of his loss. She ran, her worn-out shoes slapping against the pavement, tears of stress pricking her eyes. Samuel saw her in the mirror, running towards him, waving the money. He smirked. Here it comes, he thought. She wants more, or she's coming to grovel. He stopped the car and rolled down the window, ready to deliver a crushing line. But when Donna reached him, breathless and flushed, she didn't ask for anything. She thrust the stack of bills through the window. You left this, she panted, her chest heaving. It's too much. It must be a mistake. The smile froze on Samuel's face. This wasn't the script. She was returning it? All of it? He stared at her, stunned, his brain struggling to process this shocking truth. I left it for you, he stammered, caught off guard. It's a tip. Donna shook her head violently, tears finally spilling over. I can't take this. It's not right. Please, take it back. She was practically begging him to take the money, terrified of the implications of keeping it. It was a moment of pure, raw honesty that cut through Samuel's cynicism like a knife. She was handing back a fortune, a life-changing amount, because she thought it was a mistake. She chose her morals over her survival. She was crying not out of joy, but out of fear and integrity. Samuel looked at the money in her hand, then at her face, seeing the destiny of two souls colliding in the most unexpected way. Keep it, he said, his voice softer now, confused. I meant to leave it. But Donna dropped the money on the passenger seat and stepped back, shaking her head. I earned my wage, sir. I didn't earn this. She turned and ran back toward the diner, leaving Samuel alone in his luxury car with $10,000 and a shattered worldview. He sat there for a long time, the engine idling, trying to understand what had just happened. Samuel watched Donna disappear back into the diner, and the initial shock began to curdle back into suspicion. His mind, conditioned by years of corporate betrayals and fake friends, couldn't accept what he had just witnessed. No, he muttered to himself, gripping the steering wheel. It's a trick. It's a long con. He convinced himself that she was playing 4D chess. She refused the money now to gain his trust, hoping to extract a bigger payout later. It was the only explanation that fit his twisted logic. He scoffed, tried to regain his composure. She's good, he thought. Really good. The tears, the panic Oscar-worthy. He dismissed the miracle of her honesty as a manipulation tactic. It was easier to believe she was a scammer than to admit he had misjudged her, or worse, that there were people in the world who were genuinely good. He threw the stack of cash into the glove compartment as if it were trash, angry that his social experiment hadn't yielded the simple, ugly result he wanted. He drove away, but the image of her face wouldn't leave him. That look of terrified integrity haunted him. Why did it bother him so much? Because if she was real, then he was a villain. And Samuel Coleman was a hero of his own story, not the villain. He decided he needed proof. He needed to expose her. He would not be made a fool of by a struggling waitress in a roadside diner. He would dig until he found the dirt he knew was there, back in his penthouse. Looking out over the city, Samuel felt a hollowness he couldn't fill. He poured himself a drink, the amber liquid burning his throat, but it didn't wash away the doubt. He paced the room, ranting to the empty air about people like her and their schemes. He was trying to talk himself back into his comfortable cynicism, but the memory of her returning the money kept interfering. It was unbelievable, annoying, and obsessive. She thinks she can play me? He growled. I'll show her. He decided right then that he wouldn't let it go. He would return, not to eat, but to investigate. He would watch her, catch her slipping up. He told himself it was about justice, about not letting Scammer win, but deep down, it was about fear. Fear that he was wrong about everything. He remembered the way she had said, I didn't earn this. The phrase echoed in his mind. Who says that? In his world. Everyone took what they could get, earned or not. The billionaire CEO felt a strange sense of inferiority next to the waitress who had nothing. It was a paradox that infuriated him. He had the money, but she had something he couldn't buy, a clear conscience. He slammed his glass down. Fine, he said aloud. You want to play the saint? Let's see how saintly you are when I turn over every rock in your life. He was doubling down on his cynicism, setting the stage for a confrontation that would bring the shocking truth to light, though not the one he expected. He was about to walk into a storm of his own making. Back inside the diner, Donna collapsed into a booth in the back, away from the prying eyes of customers. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by a crushing wave of despair. She put her head in her hands and wept, her body shaking with silent sobs. That money, that $10,000 tip, it could have solved everything. It could have stopped the eviction notice that was currently sitting on her kitchen table. It could have bought the medication her sick relative desperately needed. It was a life-changing sum, and she had given it back. Why? She asked herself, tears streaming down her face. Why did I do that? But she knew why. She couldn't build her life on someone else's mistake. She couldn't look herself in the mirror if she took advantage of a stranger, even a rude one. But her morals didn't pay the rent. Her integrity didn't keep the lights on. The reality of her situation crashed down on her, heavy and suffocating. She felt like she had passed a test, but failed at survival. Her boss, a grueling man with little sympathy, shouted from the kitchen, "Wynter, get back to work. We're not paying you to cry." Donna wiped her face frantically, forcing the tears to stop. "Yes, sir," she choked out, standing up on shaky legs. She had to keep going. She had to pretend she was fine. It was a heartbreaking performance, putting on the mask of stability when her world was crumbling. She thought about the man in the suit. Did he even care? Did he know what he had done? To him, it was probably pocket change, a game. To her, it was life and death. The injustice of it burned in her chest. She wondered if destiny was playing a cruel joke on her, dangling salvation in front of her face only to snatch it away. She felt humiliated by her own poverty, by the fact that she had to be so virtuous just to keep her self-respect. The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Every plate she carried felt like lead. Every customer's smile felt like a mockery. She kept replaying the scene in her head, the money on the seat, his shocked face, her running away. Had she made a mistake? Should she have kept it? The doubt gnawed at her, a relentless whisper. She was a struggling waitress with a conscience, and it felt like a curse. When her shift finally ended, she walked home in the rain, the cold water soaking through her thin coat. She clutched her tips for the day, barely $40, and thought about the $10,000 she had rejected. It was a plot twist in her own life that she couldn't explain to anyone. Who would believe her? Who would understand? She felt utterly alone. She arrived at her small, dark apartment, dreading what awaited her inside. The eviction notice was still there, a white flag of surrender on the table. She sat down and stared at it, the weight of her decision settling in. She had done the right thing, she told herself. But as she shivered in the cold room, she couldn't help but wonder if doing the right thing was worth losing everything. Samuel couldn't sleep. The encounter with Donna had burrowed under his skin like a splinter. The next morning, fueled by coffee and suspicion, he made a call. He hired a private investigator, a man known for digging up dirt that didn't exist, to look into Donna Wynter. "I want everything," Samuel instructed, his voice cold. "Debts, criminal record, past aliases. She's running a scam, and I want to know how it works." He was expecting to find a family secret, a history of fraud, anything to validate his cynicism. The investigator, a gruff man named Miller, didn't ask questions. He just took the money and the name. Samuel sat back in his leather chair, feeling a grim satisfaction. Soon he would have the proof. Soon he could go back to the diner and throw the file on the table, wiping that look of holy innocence off her face. He convinced himself he was protecting society from a predator, ignoring the fact that the predator was a woman serving eggs for minimum wage. Days passed. Samuel found himself driving by the diner, watching from a distance. He saw Donna trudging to work, looking more tired each day. Acting, he whispered, all part of the show. He was projecting his own deceptive nature onto her, unable to conceive of a life lived without masks. He was a billionaire CEO obsessed with a waitress, a dynamic that was becoming increasingly pathetic, though he refused to see it. He waited impatiently for the report. Every time his phone rang, he hoped it was Miller with the smoking gun. He imagined the headlines, "Waitress Con Artist Exposed by Vigilante CEO." It was a narrative that suited his ego. He needed her to be bad so he could continue being who he was. If she was good, then who was he? That question terrified him. Finally, the email came. Subject: Donna, Wynter background check. Samuel opened it with a smirk, ready to be vindicated. He expected mugshots, bankruptcy filings due to gambling, maybe a string of aliases. He leaned forward, his eyes scanning the document, hungry for the shocking truth that would prove him right. He was ready to see the plot twist he had predicted. But as he read, his frown deepened. There were no arrests, no aliases, no history of fraud. Instead, the report detailed a life of struggle and tragedy. It mentioned unpaid medical bills, but not for her. It mentioned a spotless employment record despite frequent job changes, always leaving for family reasons. Samuel scrolled down, confused. "Where is it?" he muttered. "Where's the dirt?" He called Miller. "You missed something," he accused. "There has to be something." Miller's voice was dry on the other end. "There's nothing, Mr. Coleman. She's clean. Squeaky clean. Actually, it's worse than that. You should read the second page." Samuel hung up, frustrated. He turned back to the screen, scrolling to page 2. He wasn't ready for what he was about to find. The investigation was about to backfire spectacularly. The second page of the investigator's report was not a list of crimes, but a chronicle of sainthood that made Samuel's stomach turn with unease. It revealed that Donna was the sole caregiver for a sick relative and aunt who had taken her in as a child. The medical debt wasn't from reckless spending, it was from life-saving treatments she was paying for out of pocket. She was working 3 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, and literally starving herself to keep a roof over their heads. The investigator had included notes from neighbors. "She's a saint," one read. "Never complains. Always helps others even when she has nothing." Samuel stared at the words, the unbelievable reality crashing against his cynical fortress. She wasn't a scammer. She was a hero, and he had treated her like dirt. He had mocked her, tested her, and then dismissed her integrity as a con. The guilt began to creep in, a cold, unfamiliar sensation. He read about the eviction notice. She was days away from being thrown onto the street. The $10,000 he had left. She had returned it while staring down the barrel of homelessness. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She had chosen honesty over survival. It was a level of moral fortitude that Samuel, with all his billions, wasn't sure he possessed. It was heartbreaking and humbling all at once. "This can't be real," Samuel whispered, trying to find a loophole. Maybe the aunt doesn't exist. But there were photos. Photos of Donna pushing a wheelchair. Photos of her exhausted face smiling at an old woman. The evidence was irrefutable. He had been wrong. Completely, devastatingly wrong. The struggling waitress was exactly who she appeared to be, and he was a monster in the story. But old habits die hard. A part of Samuel, the part that built walls for decades, refused to accept total defeat. "Maybe she knew I was checking," he rationalized, grasping at straws. "Maybe she's playing the long game for an inheritance." It was absurd, but his mind scrambled to maintain his worldview. He couldn't just be the villain. There had to be more to it. He needed to see her again. He decided he would go back to the diner. Not to apologize, he wasn't ready for that, but to confront her with the report. To see if she would crack when he laid out her life on the table. It was a cruel, invasive impulse, born of his own insecurity. He wanted to look her in the eye and see the truth for himself. He wanted to find a crack in her armor. He grabbed the file and headed for the door. He told himself he was just being thorough, finishing the social experiment. But deep down, he was drawn to her light, a moth flying toward a flame that threatened to burn down his entire artificial existence. He was heading towards a moment of redemption or ruin, and he didn't know which one he wanted. Samuel stormed into the diner, the file clutched in his hand like a weapon. The lunchtime rush was over, and the place was quiet. He spotted Donna wiping down a table, looking more exhausted than ever. He marched over to her, his presence dark and imposing. "We need to talk," he announced, slamming the folder onto the table. Donna jumped, her eyes widening in fear. "Sir, what is this?" "I know about your aunt. I know about the debts. I know everything," Samuel declared, his voice rising. He expected her to crumble, to admit she was looking for a handout. Instead, Donna's face went pale, then red with humiliated anger. You investigated me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Who gave you the right? Because I returned your money? Is that why?" The patrons turned to watch, sensing the tension. "I needed to know if you were real," Samuel countered, defensive now. People don't just return $10,000. It's a scam. Donna threw her rag down. It's called honesty, something you clearly know nothing about. Her shout echoed in the diner. It was the first time she had snapped, the pressure finally breaking her composure. I am struggling to survive, and you're playing detective with my life? Get out. The commotion drew the manager, a stout man with a red face. What is going on here? He bellowed. Samuel turned to him, his arrogance flaring up. Your waitress is hysterical. I was just trying to have a conversation. The manager looked at Donna, then at the wealthy man in the suit. He made a quick, heartless calculation. Wynter, you're causing a scene. You're fired. What? Donna gasped, the color draining from her face. No, please. You can't. I need this job. She looked from the manager to Samuel, panic in her eyes. Please, tell him. Tell him you started it. But Samuel stood there, frozen. He hadn't meant for this to happen. He wanted to expose a scammer, not destroy a life. But his pride held his tongue. He didn't defend her. Get your things and go. The manager spat. Donna looked at Samuel one last time, her eyes filled with tears and a profound betrayal. I hope you feel powerful now, she said quietly, a sentence that hit Samuel harder than a punch. She untied her apron, dropped on the floor, and ran out the back door. The silence that followed was deafening. Samuel stood there, the file still under his hand. He had won. He had proven his power. But he felt sick. He had just cost the only honest person he had ever met her livelihood. The shocking truth wasn't that she was a scammer. It was that he was a destroyer. He looked around the diner, seeing the judgment in the eyes of the other customers. For the first time in his life, Samuel Coleman felt small. The days that followed were a blur of misery for Donna. Without her job, the fragile house of cards she had built collapsed instantly. The eviction came swiftly. The landlord didn't care about excuses. She found herself on the street, her meager belongings packed into trash bags, pushing her aunt's wheelchair through the cold city streets. It was a false defeat. She had hit rock bottom. Homeless, jobless, and hopeless, she felt abandoned by God and man. She found a temporary spot in a crowded shelter, a place of noise and despair that smelled of bleach and unwashed bodies. She sat on a cot, holding her aunt's hand, trying to whisper words of comfort she didn't believe. It's gonna be okay, she lied. Well, figure it out. But inside, she was screaming. The injustice of it all was a heavy stone in her gut. She had done everything right, and this was her reward. Meanwhile, Samuel was haunting his own penthouse like a ghost. He couldn't focus on work. He couldn't enjoy his wealth. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Donna's face as she was fired. The guilt was an unexplainable, living thing that ate at him. He tried to tell himself it wasn't his fault, that she shouldn't have shouted, but the lie tasted like ash. He had destroyed her. He drove past the diner again, hoping to see her, maybe to offer her money again, this time as an apology. But she wasn't there. He asked the manager, who shrugged indifferently. Don't know. Don't care. Samuel felt a surge of rage at the man, forgetting he was the catalyst. He began searching the city, driving aimlessly, looking for a woman he barely knew but felt strangely connected to. It was heartbreaking to realize how easily a person could disappear in a big city. She was gone, swallowed by the cracks in the pavement. Samuel felt a desperation he had never known. He needed to find her, not to prove a point, but to save his own soul. He realized that his cynicism had cost him the only chance at a genuine connection he had had in years. One night, walking near the park where homeless people gathered, he saw a familiar figure. It was her. She was huddled on a bench, wrapped in a thin blanket. Samuel froze. Seeing her like that, destitute because of him, broke something inside him. The billionaire CEO fell away, leaving just a man filled with regret. He stepped forward, wanting to help, but stopped when he saw something fall from her coat as she shifted. It was a locket. It hit the ground with a metallic clink. Samuel watched as she frantically searched for it in the dark, her panic evident. He waited until she settled back down, too ashamed to approach her yet. When she finally fell into a fitful sleep, he crept closer. The locket lay near her foot. He picked it up gently, intending to look at it and leave it, or maybe wake her. But when he opened it under the street lamp, his heart stopped. The locket was old, the gold tarnished by time and wear. Inside was a small, faded black and white photograph. Samuel squinted at it, his breath catching in his throat. The face staring back at him was undeniable. It was a man with a sharp jawline and piercing Aisa face Samuel saw every time he looked in the mirror, but older. It was his father, not a look-alike, not a coincidence. It was undoubtedly, unmistakably his father. His mind reeled. How did this struggling waitress have a picture of the late billionaire industrialist William Coleman in her locket? He turned it over. Engraved on the back were the words to my secret joy. Love, W. The ground seemed to shift beneath Samuel's feet. A family secret buried for decades was resting in the palm of his hand. His father had died years ago, leaving Samuel as the sole heir, or so he thought. He looked at Donna, sleeping on the bench, shivering in the cold. The pieces of the puzzle began to click into place, forming a terrifying and unbelievable picture. The resemblance he hadn't noticed before, the eyes, the stubborn chin, it was all there. A strange, magnetic pull he had felt toward her. Was it blood calling to blood? The thought was a shocking truth that terrified him. He couldn't leave her there, but he couldn't wake her up and say, "I think you're my sister." He needed proof. He needed to be sure. He carefully placed the locket back near her hand, his hand trembling. He took a photo of the locket and the picture with his phone as evidence. Then he did something he never thought he would do. He took a strand of hair from her coat, a tiny, golden thread of potential evidence. He rushed back to his car, his heart pounding like a drum. He drove straight to the hospital where his family's foundation was a major donor. He demanded an emergency DNA test, using his own sample and the hair he had retrieved. "I need results now," he barked at the bewildered lab tech. "I don't care what it costs. Just run it." Waiting for the results was torture. He paced the sterile hallway, his mind racing. If it was true, his entire life was a lie. His father, the man he idolized, had a secret life. And he, Samuel, had almost destroyed his own flesh and blood. The miracle of finding her was tainted by the horror of how he had treated her. He prayed for it to be true, and he prayed for it to be false. He thought of the tears in her eyes when she returned the money. That was Coleman pride. That was his father's integrity, passed down in a way Samuel had lost. The realization hit him. She was more of a Coleman than he was. She had the spirit. He just had the bank account. He sat with his head in his hands, waiting for the piece of paper that would change everything. The realization hit Samuel like a freight train. He sat in the hospital waiting room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, replaying every interaction he had ever had with Donna. The cruelty, the dismissal, the arrogance. If she was his sister, he had been torturing his own kin. The guilt morphed into a frantic need for action. He couldn't just sit there. He needed to prepare for the shocking truth that was coming. He called his lawyer. "Get everything on my father's estate. Look for any mentions of a woman. A mistress." From 30 years ago. The lawyer was confused but complied. Samuel felt like he was peeling back layers of a rotten onion. His father, the pillar of society, had left a child behind? Had left her to struggle in poverty, while Samuel lived in a palace? The injustice made his blood boil. He thought about the medical debt Donna was drowning in. It was likely for her aunt, perhaps the woman who had raised her when his father abandoned them. The pieces fit together with a sickening precision. He had spent $10,000 on a bottle of wine last week, while his sister was getting evicted for lack of funds. The disparity was heartbreaking. He felt a surge of protectiveness he had never experienced before. The lab technician finally emerged, holding a sealed envelope. Samuel stood up, his legs feeling like jelly. "The results, Mr. Coleman." Samuel took the envelope, his hands shaking. This was the moment, the plot twist of a lifetime. He hesitated, afraid to open it, afraid of what it meant. If she was his sister, how could he ever earn her forgiveness? He ripped the envelope open. He scanned the paper, looking for the numbers, the percentages. There it was. Probability of sibling relationship, 99. 9, the world stopped. The silence in the room was absolute. It was confirmed. Donna Wynter was the long-lost sister he never knew he had. The daughter of his father's secret affair. Tears pricked Samuel's eyes, actual tears. For the first time in years. He wasn't crying for himself, he was crying for her. For the years she had lost. For the struggle she had endured alone. He crumpled the paper in his hand, a vow forming in his heart. Never again, he whispered. She will never struggle again. He didn't wait. He ran out of the hospital, jumping into his car. He had to get to her before she woke up, before she disappeared again. He drove like a madman, breaking every speed limit, driven by destiny. He wasn't racing to a business deal. He was racing to reclaim his family. The billionaire CO was gone, only the brother remained. The DNA results burned a hole in Samuel's pocket as he sped back toward the park. Separated at birth or at least by a wall of secrets and lies, they had lived parallel lives that had finally crashed together. He thought about the DNA test again, the scientific proof of the impossible. It wasn't just biology, it was a cosmic correction. The universe had thrown them together in that diner for a reason. He arrived at the park just as the sun was beginning to rise, casting a pale light over the sleeping city. He ran to the bench where he had left her. She was awake, shivering, packing her meager belongings. She looked up as he approached, fear flashing in her eyes. She recognized him, the man who got her fired. She stood up to run, clutching the locket he had secretly inspected. "Wait!" Samuel shouted, breathless. "Please, Donna, wait!" She hesitated, confused by the desperation in his voice. He wasn't the arrogant tyrant anymore. He looked disheveled, frantic, human. "What do you want?" She cried, backing away. "Haven't you done enough? Leave me alone." Her voice cracked, a sound of pure exhaustion. Samuel stopped a few feet away, holding up his hands in surrender. "I know," he panted. "I know I destroyed your life, and I can never apologize enough for that. But you have to listen to me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled paper. "I found the locket, Donna. I saw the picture." Donna froze, her hand flying to her neck. You went through my things?" She was angry, but there was fear there too. "That's my father," she said defensively. "Not that it's any of your business." Samuel took a step closer, his eyes intense. "I know," he said softly. "I know it's your father, because he was my father too." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and unbelievable. Donna stared at him, shaking her head. "What kind of sick game is this? You're crazy." Samuel unfolded the paper. "I ran a test. We share the same DNA, Donna. You are my sister." He held out to her, his hand trembling. "The shocking truth is that we are family." Donna looked at the paper, then at Samuel's face. She looked for the lie, the mockery, but saw only raw vulnerability. She saw her father's eyes staring back at her from a stranger's face. Her legs gave out, and she sank back onto the bench, the revelation too big to comprehend. The family secret she had carried alone was suddenly shared. Samuel dropped to his knees on the dirty pavement position no one had ever seen the billionaire CEO in. He didn't care about his suit or his image. He only cared about the woman sitting in front of him. "I am so sorry," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know. If I had known." He reached out hesitant, wanted to touch her hand, but afraid she would recoil. Donna stared at the DNA results, the tears finally falling freely. "My mother. She told me he had another family." She whispered. She said they were powerful, that I should never go near them. She looked at Samuel, seeing not a monster, but a brother who was just as broken as she was. "You're him? The son?" Samuel nodded, tears streaming down his own face. "I am, and I've been alone for a long time, just like you." It was a touching scene in the middle of a desolate park. Two siblings, separated by a lifetime of circumstances, reunited by a twist of fate. Samuel poured out his heart, apologizing for the diner, for the investigation, for the firing. "I was testing you because I didn't believe good people existed." He confessed. "But you proved me wrong. You are the best person I've ever met." Donna looked at him, seeing the genuine remorse. She had lost her job, her home, her dignity, all because of him. But looking at him now, begging for forgiveness. She saw a chance for redemption not just for him, but for their family story. She slowly reached out and took his hand. It was a gesture of grace that floored Samuel. "I forgive you," she said softly. "Brother." The word broke Samuel completely. He wept, head bowed, holding his sister's hand. The miracle wasn't the money or the DNA, it was his forgiveness. He realized that she had saved him long before he had saved her. She had saved his humanity. They sat there for a long time, the sun rising over them, illuminating a new chapter. "Come with me," Samuel said finally, wiping his face. "We have a lot to do. You're not sleeping on a bench ever again." He stood up and helped her rise, treating her like royalty. "Where are we going?" she asked, clutching her locket. "Home," Samuel said. "We're going home." He led her to his car, opening the door for her. This time, there was no arrogance, only service. He was determined to make up for every second of hardship she had endured. It was a destiny fulfilled, a circle closed. The long-lost sister was found, and the lost brother was found too. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of life-changing events. Samuel didn't just write a check, he stepped up as a brother. He bought a beautiful home for Donna and her aunt, fully accessible and filled with everything they needed. He hired the best doctors to care for her aunt, ensuring she received the treatment she had been denied for so long. The medical debt vanished with a single stroke of his pen. But it wasn't just about money. Samuel spent every day with Donna. They looked through old photo albums, piecing together the family secret that had defined their lives. He learned about her struggles, her dreams, her resilience. She learned about his loneliness, his pressure, his hollow success. They healed each other. The billionaire CEO softened, finding joy in simple dinners and shared stories. One afternoon, Samuel took Donna back to the Greasy Spoon. The manager looked terrified when he saw Samuel, but Samuel just smiled. He bought the diner, not to close it, but to give it to Donna. "It's yours," he told her. "Run it right. Treat people with kindness. Make it the place you always wanted it to be." It was the ultimate redemption. Donna cried, overwhelmed by the gesture. She wasn't just a struggling waitress anymore. She was a business owner, a sister, a woman with a future. She hugged Samuel tight, the bond between them unbreakable. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Samuel hugged her back, feeling a peace he had never known. "No," he said, "thank you for saving me." The story of the billionaire and the waitress became a local legend, a miracle that people whispered about. But for Samuel and Donna, it was just their life, a life where destiny had intervened to correct mistake. They were a family reunited, proving that sometimes the biggest tips in life aren't financial, they're emotional. Samuel watched Donna laughing with her aunt in their new garden, and he smiled. The cynic was dead. In his place was a man who knew the value of family. He had tipped a waitress $10,000, but he had received a sister in return. It was the best deal he had ever made. The shocking truth turned out to be a beautiful one. He was no longer alone. In the end, Samuel learned the hard way that you can buy a house, but you cannot buy a home. He thought his wealth made him superior, but it was Donna's integrity, her refusal to keep a fortune she desperately needed, that proved to be the true currency of value. It wasn't the billions that saved them, it was the bloodline they shared and the forgiveness she offered. If you also believe that family is the only wealth that truly matters, and that it's never too late to rewrite your story, then you have found your tribe. Subscribe and join our community of believers. Now, I have a challenge for you. Hit that like button as a sign of respect for Donna's unshakable morals. And tell me in the comments below, honest, if you were drowning in debt and found $10,000 in cash, would you have returned it like she did? I want to know your heart. And finally, share this video with someone who needs a reminder that redemption is always possible. And while you wait for our next adventure, know that this channel is a treasure chest of emotional journeys just like this one. Explore our older videos to discover other stories that will touch your soul. And to make sure you don't miss the next roller coaster of emotion we are preparing for you, turn on that notification bell right now. You won't want to be left out of the surprises coming next.